taught, but never doctrine. And we don't want to become just a country club where you can believe whatever you want. We're a church, right? We stand for Jesus Christ. And I have one of the volunteers that I worked with at the prison. One day I was loading some supplies into her car at the prison, and I saw this bumper sticker on her vehicle. And you probably can't see this, but this was a bumper sticker on her vehicle. And I said, "What is that?" Because she was a volunteer at the Oasis, which was a United Methodist ministry. What this is a symbol for if you want to call it a church. And they ordain people so you can marry your cousin or your brother-in-law. You know, you can do a wedding, right? For like, I don't know, $50 you can get ordained, which to me is a little offensive after what I went through. I'm sorry. But on the sticker, it's got the yin yang, which is Taoism. It's got the Judaic star. It's got the Muslim moon and whatever. It's got the satanic star. It has the Christian star right next to it, the Hindu star, a Hindu symbolism, the Sikhism symbol, the Celtic cross, which could also indicate Druid worship. It's got the star symbol for astrology and witchcraft, one for feminism, one for Buddhism, and two I didn't recognize. I said, why is this on your car? Oh, that's where I got ordained. I said, do you realize it's not Christian? Because she's a member of the United Methodist Church and apparently a volunteer at my Christian ministry. I said, do you realize right next to the cross is a satanic pentagram? Oh, really? That's a problem. Almost done. So when I was at Bellevue, a couple times I would have potential members come and schedule an appointment to meet with me, and they would want to know about what the church believed. And they wanted to know, what do we stand for? And I can tell you, in every time when I got called in for an interview, we lost. We lost to the Baptist church. Why is it the Baptist church has to have all of the grounds for biblical teaching? I have some friends who were attending a Methodist church in the villages, and they were expressing their problems over what the Methodist church is going through, and people said, don't worry, just go to the Baptist church. That's everyone's answer, just become a Baptist. Well, you know, we're still Wesleyans, are we? Are we not Wesleyans? Okay. And the last thing I want to say is that maybe you're still not sure where you stand with the human sexuality question, and I'm glad that that Dr. Farmer brought that up, because there was a lot of times when I wasn't sure, and because every time I would hear somebody speak, I would get swayed, and I know probably all of you are way too strong to ever have that happen to you, but I've been swayed back and forth. And what finally did it for me, and I'll probably lose every one of you with this statement, I started learning about inner healing and deliverance ministry. I started learning about how the demonic gets access into our lives. I started learning about spirit of perversion and the spirit of homosexuality and things that get into our bloodlines. And I finally said, you know what? I know where I stand. And the way that I finally came to this decision to leave just happened this past June. I was having a lot of problems with the prison ministry, and I was facing a lot of persecution from the chaplains. And so I went on a 21-day fast. And I was asking God for an answer during this 21-day fast to this problem in the prison. On the 21st day, I was saying, Lord, I don't have an answer. Did I just fast for 21 days for nothing? Because I was kind of mad. And all of a sudden, with 5 hours to go in the 21-day fast, the Lord said, it's time to go. And I did.
Thank you, Chris, Elizabeth, and Bill. We got a lot of questions here. Does anyone need to take a little break before we get going, or do you want to keep going? Keep going, okay. Okay, so I got a whole bunch of questions here. I'm going to read them off and then kind of point it to one of our speakers to answered. First one, excuse me. Current exit fee estimates are 32K apportionments, 98K unfunded pensions. What additional costs can be expected? I think Elizabeth can speak to that.
I think as we talked about the insurance, whatever your current insurance, probably consider doubling that. And someone mentioned legal fees. You can employ the NCLL, National Center for Life and Liberty. It's a Christian law firm out of Tampa. Who all remembers the Terry Schiavo case in Florida? They represented Terry Schiavo, her family, instead of her husband. And that's how they rose to fame. So they're a very, very strong Christian family, but they are doing all of the legal documents that you would need to disaffiliate. You need to redo your corporate documents and that kind of thing. It's $1,000. So whatever we just talked about are those two figures, double your insurance for at least 1 year and about $1,000 for your legal fees. And that's about that.
Thank you. Thank you, Elizabeth. Next question. Where do we go from here? That's a pretty general one. Does anybody want to address that? Or? Excuse me.
That was really my question. Where do we go from here? I think we get together and we need to hear from you where we want to go. You know, just the turnout here today says we need to keep going. We need to keep going. We need to hear from you. I hope we can accomplish it.
Thank you, Pastor Bill. Next question. Will Bibles, hymnals, historical records, financial records, memberships be removed with this affiliation?
They did not, no. The way we were, and I think Pastor Chris will say this, that, and Alex and the bishop both said, there isn't going to be a monogram or a logo police running around trying to make sure you take logos. They don't want it off your sign. They don't want it off your website. They'll want it off the obvious things, but they're not going to make you, in other words, Dunellen has crossing the flame on each side of its pews, every pew, and they're not asking you to do that. So, in other words, there's a comedy with it, if you will. I'm not understanding what you mean by financial records. You have to disclose your financial records. Oh, all of your old reports?
They have to stay with the corporation. I think this was stated in
Okay, I don't remember
I
that.
think where this question came from, one of the letters or documents that came from either the admin council or Pastor Patty made that statement. So maybe that's where the answer should come from. If not, we'll move on. I heard that a petition was sent in and we could vote. When is that vote going to be? I can answer that one. A petition was sent in. It was sent in, I believe, on October 1st. It is at the DS's, he has it now, and I believe he has 120 days to respond to that. We don't know how he will respond. I tend to think that he will honor it, but I've been told that he doesn't have to.
No,
If
Neil,
that's the case, that's really being heavy-handed, but I don't
Neil,
expect
it's
that to happen.
90 days, and there will be a response. before
90
that.
days?
90 days.
Thank you, Patty. So we will hear within 90 days, and already we've had maybe 20 or so. So that will enable us to have a church conference where we will be able to vote whether to disaffiliate or not. Excuse me. Next question. We're being told that the GMC currently does not officially exist. That it is waiting until it holds the next general conference in 2024. Is that true?
If I said that incorrectly, church was born, the Global Methodist Church was born May 1. Once the protocol was deemed not to be able to be passed because they weren't going to have a general conference, it was born. It has pastors, it has churches. The only thing that isn't official is, as I said, that rule book. We don't have the actual official rules yet. It's born, it's got employees, it's got the whole thing. So no, that is incorrect.
Thank you. Next question. When, excuse me, I got a frog in my throat here. When will the first general conference occur to establish the permanent book of discipline and doctrine occur?
Latter part of 2023 is the idea. Latter part of 2023, I was going to get you some water.
I have some, thank you.
Oh, okay.
Excuse me.
Don't get the vodka one.
If we vote to leave, do we need to have the funds ready, about $170,000, to pay UNC on that day? And if we decide to go with the UNC, how long did it take Denellen to get all their paperwork done? A lot for you, Elizabeth.
You do need to have the money ready, but that is literally at the time that you sign your documents. The annual conference will vote whether to let you leave or not. Now, please understand, in Florida, the annual conference has never not voted to let a church out. So people get a little worried about, what if we go through all of this and then the annual conference, they vote not to let us out. They've never not done that. They've let every church out that wanted to be out. We were voted out in June, and it took us until September. In other words, they gave us extensions. We had an outstanding insurance issue. It was an outstanding insurance claim that was pending. So we had to sort of puzzle through that. But the day that you are finished with all your paperwork, you have to literally hand them the check. So at that point. So in other words, it'll be after the annual conference, whether it's the end of June, middle of June. If they vote June 5 or whenever the annual conference is, if it takes you 3 more weeks to get all your paperwork, at that point is when you would need your check.
Thank you. Next question. In a June 25th letter, Bishop Vikerson, President of the Council of Bishops, stated that the position of the United Methodist Church on the Supreme Court ruling on Roe versus Wade. He stated the ruling, quote, denied the sacred worth of women and creates gender, racial, and economic injustice for all Americans. There was no mention about the lives of fetuses or babies lost at abortion. When does me change to we? Has this always been the position of the United Methodist bishops?
Well, that's not the position of the discipline, and that's the problem that we've been talking about. The bishop decided that he knew better than what the ruling body of General Conference was. General Conference didn't say that at all. And so he's speaking out in a voice that should not have been heard. Sure.
Global Methodist Church has had multiple meeting after meeting and have decided, at least at this point, they are not going to get into the social aspect of all of the political stuff. They're going to stay as far away from that as they can. In part because of this, you know what it does, it muddies the water. So they've made a conscious effort to say that the Global Methodist Church will not be a social justice mouthpiece, so to speak.
Thank you. Next question. Oops, I just threw the next question away. How does disaffiliation of this church affect the retirement pensions of our retired pastors?
If you're retired already, like I am, I called them, they said there's no effect whatsoever. Everything continues just as it is. And the Global Methodist Church is working with the same agency as the United Methodist Church, so it'll all work together.
Yeah, they transferred my existing pension over
Thank you.
Insurance did change, I know it explained it in another meeting, what Doug and Ellen, that there was, I forget who was there, Jay, but he did say, and here was, oh, your insurance stays in your hands. This is the person had to go with like, the $5,000 or whatever, possible. You won't necessarily have that if you go to the local Methodist church. You also, your 82, Jay said, is possibly, districts or the administration.
We can't hear what.
Yeah, nobody can hear what you're
Speaking of a
saying.
microphone. I don't know, so I
Okay.
don't.
What is the 82 change? But because that is really.
Get the microphone.
Yeah, Ms. Allen, back there, please.
So we do have questions after these, so.
I'm not gonna stay up here to answer any more questions.
Don't get into too many details, just basically answer the question.
The pensions, yes, is Westpac. Okay, that will stay the same and stuff, but there is a part of our pensions that are 1982, and it has to do with, but I was told by Jay, who was, the leader.
Jay Farrell.
Jay Farrell, that will not necessarily stay the same and stuff, because that's with United Methodist Church now. And also, insurance, some retired pastors up to a certain point were allowed to be, it's retired pastors insurance and stuff. So that stays in United Methodist Church. But those of us that they stopped that insurance for retirees and they were allowed a $5,000, whatever, and stuff like that, just a flexible account, that changed and stuff. That if you go to Global Methodist Church as a retired pastor, you would lose that benefit.
Thank you. Next question. We received a letter from our pastor and other church members that said the church had decided to remain UMC. I thought I was a member, and when did we as a church make that decision? Well, obviously we haven't yet. I know that our pastor and the majority of our church council does want to remain UMC, and they are encouraging you to do so, but that decision has not been made. We feel that the membership should make that decision. Next one. Do the UMC bishops and hierarchy believe in and financially promote critical race theory? I'm not sure how to answer that one. None of us are the bishops or hierarchy, so I guess that one's gonna have to go in unanswered. Will Patty stay on if we go GMC? I guess.
No.
Okay, Patty, her answer from the rear was no. Explain what apportionment means in simple terms. I could give you a general idea, but maybe, it's essentially the dues. The franchise fee that we paid the United Methodist Church for the privilege of being a United Methodist Church. It helps go to pay for everything that the mother UNC church does.
It's our mission across the world.
Yes.
What was that?
It's our mission across the world.
Our mission across the world comes from the rear. Thank you. And the last part I have, GMC apportionments are indicated to be 1.5% of annual operating income, but a specific percent to be determined by general conference. What are current GMC churches' apportionments based on? Additionally, payments for, I'm not sure what that says, annual CCNF are not to exceed 5% for operating income, so will total apportionments be 7.5% of operating income? Okay, I'm told it's capped at 5, and many of the churches, the UMC, or the GMC churches, are not even paying them yet. Okay, that's all of the printed questions I have. Are there any questions from the floor? Just step to the microphone and ask your question, and we'll have one of the speakers respond.
It's my understanding that when the vote is taken, only the people that are present at the voting forum, those votes are the only ones that will be counted. Oh,
That is correct. They have
So in
to
other words, if we have 400 members, or close to, if 20 or 30 people show up, those are the ones that are going to decide our fate.
that is correct.
You think that's fair? Why don't we have absentee ballots for a decision of this size?
That's the UMC made those rules.
Yeah, Elizabeth can expound on that.
The United Methodist Conference is very strict on it, and they need to be. They will ask you literally to get in a line and sign your name that you are a professing member, and they actually want copies of those signatures. So you have to not only be present, but you have to profess that you are a professing member, and someone from your church office will also check off that you, sir, are a professing member. I guess to be fair to everybody, they wouldn't want someone to stack the ballot box, if you will.
Well, isn't it being stacked by not allowing, by not taking, why can't they have absentee ballots and confirm if somebody signs the ballot, confirms from that signature that they are a member? I mean, this is really a big deal.
And I assume you're concerned about snowbirds to some extent?
Absolutely,
Right, and I mean-
snowbirds. We're in an aged community. A lot of people can't even make it to church. We have over 100 people every Sunday that watch the service online,
Right.
that don't come in here.
Right.
That's 25% of our population.
Okay, so when and if you schedule your vote, you need to make sure it's scheduled at the most opportune time, whether that be the middle of the day, not in the
And
nighttime.
who's gonna determine it's an opportune time?
In theory, it should be the pastor, the DS, and the leadership team. It should come to some conclusion as to when it occurs.
Why are the Methodist seminaries so off base?
Did everybody hear that? Why are the Methodist seminaries so off base?
I don't know, but when I got ready to go to seminary, there was a pretty careful choices on what they believed and so on. I know at the seminary I was at, they really wanted to stretch your faith, and there's an element of that. But some of the seminaries have tried to reach out to other denominations that are more liberal, and I think tried to make their seminary be whatever needed it to be for whoever wanted to come. We gotta go back to the scripture and the doctrines of the Methodist Church. And if the seminaries aren't doing the job, we don't go there. Now, Asbury is not a Methodist seminary, but it produces more Methodists than any seminary. And thank goodness we have an Asbury grad for our pastor. So I appreciate that.
You have something else, another question?
Yes,
Go
so
ahead.
if somebody wants to comment, go ahead.
I'm sorry?
If somebody wanted to make a comment,
I didn't know you were still up there. I had my hand up for a question.
Go ahead. Ask the next question.
food for thought. Are we wanting to stay with the UMC just because we want to stay in our comfort zone? Or are we willing to seek truth?
I think that's a good question for each of us individually here. You need to think deeply and pray to answer that question, each one. Can you step up to the mic, please?
be more of a personal testimony.
Go ahead.
At this point in time, my husband and I are voting to stay. When I came to the end of myself, God entered my room, and He brought me love and light and forgiveness, things I didn't even know I did. I went to the church next door, which was the United Methodist Church. A group of Christ-like followers discipled me. They shielded me from the rocks that I learned later were wanting to be thrown at me because they saw a twice divorced there, promiscuous woman, the person who had an abortion. They saw sin, not a person. I have a child who's been a prostitute. Do you hear that? Or do you see her as a person? What will the globalists see her as? What will the United Methodists see her as? I have a child who's an addict. Will you see him as an addict? Will you see him as a person burdened by sin? My Jesus took me by the hand and said, no one is condemned you. Go and sin no more. He taught me the difference between what was okay and what was not. I learned you don't have sex outside of marriage. I learned I should have waited a few months. My child